we can do justice to that topic.
Oh, we're sure. We're sure you can. Okay, so the topic that we suggested is adoption is not plan B, right? Because we know that you are advocates of that concept. And I guess I'll turn it over now to Mitch so that she can start um, with that part.
Yeah, hi, good morning. So it's a really interesting topic actually, and you're right now. It's something that a lot of Filipinos, maybe think that adoption is Plan B, but it's not. And can you explain it like in your own personal experience and in your words? Like if someone asks you, like, what do you mean it's not Plan B?
Mm. Actually, it's a wish that adoption was not is not Plan B, and that phrase actually came from Joshua when we were at an adoption forum that was hosted by uh, Rohei, and he was telling me that, you know what, I wish, he said, I don't remember the exact, you know, phrasing, but he did say, why does adoption have to be like the last option? Why can't it be the first choice or the first option? And he had a point, and it stuck in my mind. So I've been asking myself that question, and even right now, honestly, even as we have adopted Joshua, um, my first wife, my first late wife, Ting Ting, struggled also with the concept of adoption, but I was the one who was very open to it. But it was a plan B for her, and to some extent to me, because the natural tendency when you get married is that, okay, let's have a baby and let's try having it the natural way. You don't get married and say, okay, come on, let's adopt by starting a family. It's not really the first option. So that's the context, and I wish I could say that uh, things have changed. But when Mira and I got married, looking back, I do remember when we discussed starting a family, because I don't know, because of, we already had a track. I mean, there was already a track record. Parang nandun na si Joshua. So I was blessed because Miriam was open. And then when I mentioned, oh, let's add to the family, and I said, okay, so should we adopt again, or should we? So it was a choice between. It wasn't anymore, okay, let's try first and then adopt. But it was already in the discussion right away, and Joshua was part of that discussion when he was saying,
When was this the first time we were
first,
trying to get pregnant, or the
no,
second time?
even when we got married, we would discuss the first few months. He would say that adapt na, because first of all, it doesn't take that long. I mean, you try same with our ages, it might take some time. He wanted to have a sibling right away. I said, if you adopt, it's there right away. So even for him, that mindset is, um, it started with him that adoption shouldn't be plan B. So I
Uh,
don't know if it
how
starts.
old is Joshua? Sorry.
He's 13 now.
He's,
He's
wow,
13.
it's very mature
That's,
for his age. I mean, the way you describe.
yeah,
Yeah.
he discussed that when he was practically 6 or 7. He because we were very open. I was open to him about his adoption by the time he could start speaking.
Mm,
So he already knew about, adoption being God's gift and him being part of God's plan.
yeah. It's interesting na like early on you were more open to adoption than your late wife. Can you explain like how you became like did you have prior experience like a friend who was adopted or like what made you more open to it, you think?
No, come to think of it, I didn't have a friend who was adopted. I was just open when my Ting Ting and I, when we got married, we moved to this village in Parañaque called Merville, And then I was just walking around and I saw this house that said Shalom Bata Center. And so I walked in, I knocked on the door and asked, if there were any what that center was about. I saw there was a Christian. It was being run by two Christian British missionaries, and I saw that it was an orphanage of some sorts. And so
Mm.
that moment, parang God placed in my heart this burden that it's okay to adopt. When I saw the children, I had this desire to take take the kids home and give them a family. So many times, and then we would spend our birthdays. I would celebrate my birthday there. My wife would come with me. Okay lang sa kanya to visit, but adoption for her was still not an option. But for me, somehow God, I credit God for placing that love for someone who is not even of my own flesh or blood inside me. So there was one time I was uh, playing with the babies, helping out, and I was sitting, nakasquat ako sa floor, and then this toddler came up to me and just sat on my lap. And, you know, I can't describe the feeling, pero I had this feeling of, I want to take home this baby. I want to give him a home. I want to be his father. And she, that baby just looked up to me and was smiling at me. And, my heart just melted. I just wanted to take. And then I actually said, can I take this baby home? I said, no, there's
Mhm.
a process. Actually, you can't just take it home. I mean, it's like kidnapping if you did that. So,
Mhm.
And I remember you told me that God told you
yeah,
that you're going to adopt.
yeah. Yeah, he, one day when I was on my way home from work, I was driving up our driveway, and just out of the blue, God said, you're going to adopt. And I
This
didn't
was how long
this was
in
within
marriage?
within a year of the marriage. We didn't know that we were gonna have a hard time. So
Mm.
for God, it was plan A for him.
Mm.
For God, it was plan A. And once we, Ting and I adopted Joshua, for her, she started telling people this should be your plan A. Don't wait anymore. Couples who just got married or have trouble having a child, go adopt. It's the best thing.
Mm. What what's the process of adoption then? Like when you adopted Joshua, like different from now, you think? Was it more difficult, or like how was it for you
No,
guys?
it was, I have a friend. He's the kuya of a best friend of mine, and his name is Casey. He adopted their first child, and when we were talking we bumped into each other at the wake, and we exchanged notes. And he said, "You know what? Among all the government agencies in the Philippines, SSS, sorry, DSWD, you know, is the best investment in terms of tax money because of the
Mm.
adoption."
Oh.
And I agree because I didn't experience um, difficulty, not a lot of red tape. It was just normal, processing of. The only thing that was perhaps difficult was proving to the court when we had to go to and give our testimonies that we were, just to see that we were, not making adoption into, child trafficking or something.
Mm.
But we just had to prove that we were mentally, emotionally, and financially capable, and that was the only, if you can call it a hurdle. And the whole process took like 9 months, and then the adoption papers, his birth certificate, wherein I and my first wife were his parents, it didn't show anymore his biological parents. Came
Mm.
out a year later after that.
Wow. Nice.
Yeah,
What
tapos
about?
hindi siya mahal. Hindi rin siya mahal considering, you know, uh, the KBF was, we went through KBF, Kaisahang Buhay Foundation,
Mm.
and DSWD. There were not a lot of fees. I was surprised kasi I hear a lot of stories where sorry, I don't want to knock off the private, the adoption agencies, but I hear a lot of
Yeah, may
stories where,
placement fee, ganun.
yeah, there's so many fees that they ask for. I never experienced that. No placement fees, no fees for the social workers. They didn't ask for money.
Mm. Yeah. Kasi I think direct the SWD. What about you, Miriam? What for you? What naman is your idea of adoption? I guess before you met Joshua, before you met Ardy, and then you know meeting them, and then that idea of adoption being not Plan B. Like, what does it mean for you?
Actually, when I was divorced and single, I was yearning to care for someone. Siyempre, siguro, I was already in my 30s and I knew that at that age, if I were still married, I would probably already be having children. And and I remember supporting this French foundation that also has parang a house somewhere in Makati. So I remember visiting them, and then I saw this girl who's mestiza. Parang I had an urge na parang I wonder if I can adopt this girl. Parang
Mm,
ganon. So it was already in my mind, but however I didn't push through with it because parang ako kasi parang I'd rather have children na complete yung family with a father present. So
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 you're still
but
single. Ah, you're
I
just
was
divorced.
divorced.
Okay.
I was, I think, separated. I can't even remember if I was already divorced or separated.
Mm.
But I was considering looking into adoption. However, probably because I was also busy with other things, it wasn't a priority for me. But it was a consideration at the time when I was visiting the orphanage. And fast forward to the time when God introduced me to Ardy, and during that time, well, I was still proud na parang I preferred marrying someone na walang sabit. And so when I learned that Ardy had Joshua, parang I was a bit hesitant to accept Ardy as even though God already told me that he was gonna be the one I should marry, but God did the work in my heart. And when I met Joshua and I saw how Ardy was also being a wonderful father to Joshua, it melted my heart to see them together. And slowly but surely, God showed me how this could be. How I could be an addition to their already wonderful relationship. They're already
mm,
wonderful family. And so, yun, so when we finally got married, I was actually happy to be a new mom, even to a grown boy. However, I didn't know how to care for a child that did not come from me, or already grown boy. I mean, I didn't have the benefit of hormones as I had with Elijah, and now with my future baby, because I'm now currently pregnant.
oh,
But
congratulations.
thank you. I'm 13 weeks along, and then yeah. So being a new mother to a grown boy, I really didn't know how to care for him. But I just trusted God that God had planned for me to be the new mom of Joshua. And so I prayed to him and asked him, Lord, you have predestined me to be a mother to this boy. And I know that you love him more than anyone else. And so and I also know that you love me, because I know that this is what's best for me, because you have chosen me to be part of this family. So I asked God, will you give me a heart like yours so that I could love Joshua like you love him? And it started with just submission to my husband, because Ardy told me, oh, why don't you start preparing Joshua for school or giving him a bath? And I really felt inept because I didn't have
Mm,
experience caring for children that close. I mean, I volunteered in kids' church, but nothing like giving them a bath or preparing their meals, or
mm,
doing what um, a mother would do. But it was character building for me, and also domestic training for me. And so
mm,
the first time I was giving Joshua a bath, I just, I scrambled to find a song that I could invent just so to keep him occupied and and happy in the shower. And then yeah, so I helped prepare his meal and his baon. I even took the step of learning yung bento box. Alam mo yun,
oh, cute.
you make all sort of designs for the baon of the child. But apparently, Joshua kasi is not exactly a picky eater, obviously. So he didn't really need that. Pero after a while, it was, it became so time consuming to prepare such a thing. But I was the one naman who would bring him to school, and as I obeyed, my husband, I submitted to him, and then I was doing all these motherly things for Joshua. The feelings came, and I just praise God because di ba sabi nila love is a decision, and as I
Mm.
was doing uh, as I was doing these loving motherly things for Joshua, the feelings just followed, and I felt like he was really my own son.
Mm.
That's my experience in being a mother to Josh
Yeah.
the
Wow.
first few years.
Mm.
Mhm.
So it's really the like the obedience and the doing really brings the heart of
Yeah,
God into, yeah.
yeah,
Mm. Uh, one of the things Esther mentioned is how the people who will read the booklet, like they understand the gospel and they understand how God has adopted us, pero they don't connect it but to earthly adoption. So
yeah.
how would you, like both of you, how would you, like, let's say you meet a person like that, how would you explain it to them na in a simple way, or in whatever way you want to, na it's connect that those two things are connected, and that adoption, what does it mean now? It's not plan B. Na parang, oh, no, hindi siya plan B. Like, how can you help them maybe reach that realization?
Sometimes when I talk about adoption to people, I just dinidiretso ko. I mean, I just direct and say, ikaw nga, adopted ka nga ni God eh.
Mm.
Oh, Christian.
Yeah. Oh, ikaw nga, adopted ka, di ba? We're all adopted by God. Say, how? Yeah, we were all redeemed. I mean, there's many similarities between adoption and our being redeemed by God through the blood of Jesus Christ. We're adopted, di ba? So before this, I was preparing, looking kasi um, before my go-to verse would be in James, where it says that perfect religion is
The
taking care of the
widows,
orphans and the
orphans.
widows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, pero in Romans 8:14 to 17, it says, let me read it, for all who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. 15, for you did not receive the spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you have received the spirit of adoption as
Mm.
sons by whom we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit Himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God, and if children, then heirs, heirs of God and fellow heirs with Christ, provided we suffer with Him in order that we may also be glorified. So
Mm.
it's, this is something that you just don't bring out in a conversation um, with a person as you're talking about adoption, and you whip out a Bible verse and and bunk his head with it.
Mm.
Pero it's really more for us who have done, because when we adopt, we don't really, honestly, I didn't even myself make the connection when I adopted Joshua. I
Mm.
just heard someone say, adoption is the best way to evangelize, or it's the best, um, been modeled by God already. But no one really explained it to me. It was only
Oh.
later on when Joshua was with me, when I was reading the Bible, that it dawned upon me that adoption and our being adopted into the family of God, you know, it is, that's when I saw the connection. That's when I saw that, hey, God modeled this already to us. I mean, we can't be proud because we're all actually adopted into God's family.
Mm.
We are now heirs uh, in Christ. The same way when we adopt, we also make them heirs of our family. We give them legal status. They have every right now legally to be part of everything that we possess. Okay? Uh, just like our adoption by God, it came at a great cost because it cost the life of Jesus Christ. He was crucified. It cost him physically, uh, emotionally. It was at a great price. And so is adoption. When we adopt someone, a child, it comes also at a great price because there's an emotional investment. Of course, there's time investment and there's financial investment. We basically say, from this one stranger who was not part of our family, say, you know what, I, you can now call me your father, your Abba
Mm-hmm.
father. I'm your daddy now, and you are now my heir, and you own everything. You own everything that I have. Immediately from that point where I made that decision, kaagad-agad, from a stranger to family member in an
Mm-hmm.
instant. And that's the same way that God, once we make that decision to accept or receive that gift of Christ, the gospel, immediately we become co-heirs also with Christ. And the hairs of my arms stand right now as I stated because grabe yung
Yeah.
how, how God has blessed us with this concept of adoption. Because sabi niya, ito, adopted. That's why, when Francis Chan was here, sabi niya, adoption should be a no-brainer. Dapat niya, hindi na nga
Mm.
pinag-pray yan eh. So when God speaks to you, when the opportunity is there, why do you need to think twice? Why do you need to even pray about it? Because God has already modeled it and it's already commanded in the Bible. And
Yeah.
so yun ang ano, kasi even in the Christian churches, many people are still wary. They still say, kailangan talagang pag-pray yan, kailangan talagang... I understand it's a major decision. But if God has truly given you that heart, if He has redeemed you, why is it so difficult for us to redeem others?
Mm.
Adoption.
Yeah.
Kasi you know why? Can I answer my question?
Yes.
Why?
Why? Because many of us Christians have idols. If God says adopt, He's given us a spirit of adoption. God said take care of the orphans. But what stops many people is this: it's an idol. And I submit this. I don't want to judge it. It's for me. It's the idol of comfort.
Mm. True.
Because many people see a child as an intrusion in their comfort and in their daily lives. That's my analysis. That's when I think about it. Why do people? Because the idol of comfort and the idol maybe of I don't know if you call it an idol, but placing the fear of the unknown over faith.
Mm.
Because you have to admit also, many people say, hindi mo alam kung saan galing yung anak mo yan, yung baby mo yan. You don't know the background. What if that child turns out to be like this, and like that? But I remember, the one thing pala that also helped me on this journey before we adopted, was um, when I was still head or CEO of Salt and Light and co-owner, we we hosted John Maxwell. And John Maxwell, in his first or second visit, was with his wife. And turns out John Maxwell doesn't have any biological children. His two
Oh,
kids are adopted. So
interesting.
when I talked to John Maxwell about it, we were in the van. I picked him at the airport, and I said, "You know what? Ting and I we're deciding about adoption, but Ting has these fears or apprehension that what if questions? What if the child turns out to be like this? What if the child, you know, turns out to be like that?" These fears. And he said, and I asked him, "How did you handle that?" And he said it was his wife, the man, who said, there's no guarantee if we have our own biological children that the child won't turn out to be like this or like that. All these fears that you're
Mm.
worried about, in terms of character, behavior, physical ailments, etc. There's no guarantee.
Mm. Yeah.
And so it's really a leap of faith. And it's really, and and God is pleased when we have faith over fear. Because it's a Hebrews
Mm.
11. Is that the right verse? And it is impossible to please God without faith. And I'm sure God is pleased when we take that leap of faith and adopt. So those were that was sort of the background of the context of that.
Mm.
So what I'm saying is that, there's fear and there's also the idol of comfort or convenience. and that's why I think many people say or rob themselves of the blessing of adopting a child. It's really themselves that they're robbing. It's not, both
Yeah.
child and family are robbed of the opportunity. Because my heart bleeds and my heart weeps for seeing all these childless couples who wait and wait and wait until they reach the point that they're in their 50s na. And I thought, oh, why didn't you have that? No, it's too late na for us.
Mm,
And
yeah.
sayang.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's yeah. So,
So in my case, there's one thing about knowing what's on the Bible, but there's also a journey in bringing what's in your mind down to your heart.
true.
So there I was, I'm a new mother to Joshua, and I know that it's okay to adopt because this is the heart of God. But God, but I had to truly have an encounter with God in order for me to truly understand what adoption means in the heart of God. Um, Fast forward to from me being the new mom of Josh, hashtag lucky me instant mommy.
Mm,
Fast forward to 4 years later, no, 4 years later when we were trying to have our own biological children. Um, uh, and 2 years pala, 2 years later from the time we got pregnant, from the time
Married.
we married. 2 years later, we were trying to get pregnant. So I had these workups done with my OB-GYN, and then we were both found out to be partially infertile. And me, at 40 years old, I only had 1 to 2% chances of getting pregnant. Therefore, Ardy and I were candidates for IVF.
Kasi may apas ka.
Hindi ko pa alam na may apas ako at the time.
Okay.
And so we tried to do IVF. And so we went through the process, and after the implantation, sadly, it failed. So para ako na miscarriage kasi yung embryo in-implant sa womb ko, pero hindi siya nag-develop. So there was crying to God, morning after this lost uh, baby, and then God pointed, and then parang at some point, uh, parang God told me that um, God pointed out to me that there's a distinction in my heart between loving an adopted child and loving a biological child. I was prideful pa to admit that there's indeed that distinction. Kasi parang deep in my heart, parang mas gusto kong mas mahalin yung biological child kaysa adopted child. Mahal ko si Joshua, oo. Kinakonsider ko siya na anak ko. Pero pinoint out ni God sa akin na iba yung pagmamahal ko for a biological child compared to an adopted child. And so when He pointed out to me, I was prideful pa to admit it, but when I finally realized that indeed there was that presence of a distinction, sabi sa akin ni God, hindi ba adopted din kita?
yeah. Wow.
Sabi ni Lord sa akin, nararamdaman mo ba yung difference ng pagmamahal ko sa iyo compared sa love ko kay Jesus, my only begotten Son? Sabi ko kay God, wala akong nararamdaman sa difference ng pagmamahal mo kay Jesus saka sa akin kasi ramdam na ramdam ko talaga na daughter niya ako, beloved niya ako, and I'm part of His family, I'm heir to His promises. So sabi niya sa akin, so dapat ganun ka rin kay Josh. And so I repented of my sinful heart, my pride, and that distinction. I repented of that. Sabi ko, okay. Sabi ko, Lord, hindi ko alam kung bibigyan mo pa ako ng biological child. But if Josh was going to be the only child I will ever have, help me to love him as I would any biological child. So, yun. And praise God because in the couple more years while we were waiting for me to finally be biologically pregnant with Elijah, God allowed that time, that season, for me to truly invest not just my time, not just my mind, but also all of my heart to Josh. Which is why yun, naging super, super close kami talaga ni Josh. Sabi ko, so yun, ang dami, hinumuso ko pa si Josh. Every night, nag-alternate kami to, put him to bed and I'll do activities para mas ma-engage siya, mas maging close kami.
Mm.
And yun, that was my experience and my realization na, oo nga, no, adopted pala ako.
Mm.
And how God, my experience in being a child of God is really how we must be the kind of loving experience that we must provide even for children who are adopted. And according to the Bible, it is our predestiny. Diba? We were predestined to be adopted in the family of God through Jesus Christ. And if that
Mhm.
is God's destiny for us, and it is God's heart also. Diba? The only religion that God accepts
It's pure.
is this, as pure and acceptable, is caring for orphans and widows
Yes. Mm.
who are in distress. And so obedience to adoption and making this not just plan B, but also a consideration in wanting, if for couples who want to have children, then then it should follow that. I mean, if we're really truly disciples of God, then it should follow that it should be part of the consideration.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Thanks, guys. I love your like your honesty and the way you really just shared a lot of these things. I think maraming mabibless when they read the booklet, when they read about your experiences and the things that you struggled with before coming to this beautiful realization. Siguro like if you had, like, let's say when someone's reading the chapter and they're coming to the end of it, what would be for you, like if you were going to speak to the reader, what would be like a challenge or a call to action? It doesn't have to be a big one na parang go out and adopt it. Yun ano pa lang. Yun sabihin natin, syempre ano pa rin sila, 'di ba? Like they still need to make like you said, Artie, that leap of faith, 'di ba? How would you challenge or encourage them siguro?
Well, I think the challenge, I already issued a challenge earlier in my statement earlier that, adoption, dapat nga, hindi na nga pinagpa-pray yun. Parang dapat,
True.
it's, it should be something that, oh, there's a child in need, needs a home, come, come over, uh, come to our house, come be part of the family. It should be, that's the ideal, that's the heaven on earth. Diba? Um, so the challenge really is I would challenge people to just look at their heart and pray if they have any idols in their heart that is preventing them from even considering adoption.
And maybe that's where
Um,
prayer comes in.
yeah,
Diba?
that's the
Kasi
prayer.
prayer changes
Yeah.
us.
So yeah, my
Yeah.
prayer,
Changes
my
our
challenge was,
hearts.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, the challenge is to pray that God would place in their heart that love, that
Burden.
love, or um, I just got love, that the same kind of thing that He also did for you. I would challenge I would challenge people to have that conversation with God
Yeah.
and study, and I would challenge them to also realize, you know what, I'm adopted by God. And so who am I to say, should I adopt or not?
Mm.
God gives you the opportunity, and there's so many opportunities. I'd just go ahead. Honestly, if ako Mitch, if
Yeah.
things where I sometimes joke, half jokingly tell Miriam that, why don't we have 12 children? I don't mind having 12. We can have two biological and we have 10 adopted. If we lived in a ranch or something like that.
Parang sound of music, ganun kadaming kids.
Parang ganun. Kasi
But there are actually
children are
couples who
such
do
a
that.
children are such a blessing. So
Mm.
yun, that's me.
Actually,
Go ahead.
yeah. Actually, remember with Elijah, before I got pregnant, Elijah said, okay, we'll try IVF
Mm.
again. If it doesn't work out, okay ka ba mag-adoption? the time I surprised myself, sabi ko, yeah, okay lang.
Yeah. Actually, before that, we said,
Wow.
okay,
Yeah.
our options are adoption or IVF. So, in fact, even when you were doing IVF, I was already filling up paperwork for foster family. Do you remember I said
Mm.
mag-foster tayo? We already had someone visit the house to do. Yun lang eh. It was the
Mm.
process that got, you know, um, that got kind of heavy in terms of filling up all the paperwork and getting the process done. Pero I was,
And getting assessed.
yeah. So, but kasi
Mm.
sabi ko, nag-adapt na kami. Bakit ka na pa mag-fill up na naman ng another process, di ba? Dapat kung nag-adapt ka na, and that child has been with you for so many years, parang go ahead. Parang dapat meron ka ng siguro membership card or something na you just swipe. Sa DSWD, swipe ka na okay, oh, you get another shot.
And
Kasi
then baka
dami
kasi
eh.
iba na status mo eh. Dati iba yung wife mo.
Yeah, maybe.
Bago. No.
Yeah, pero yun nga, that's just my mindset. So that's a challenge also for people to have. Siguro a change of mindset. And
Yeah.
yun. I don't know.
Mm.
Have you answered the question?
Yeah.
Oh,
No, no,
what
that's good. Parang yeah, from what I understand, parang instead of people praying na should I adopt, parang ipag-pray mo muna yung heart mo if number one, may idol ka, and number two, na God would just give you that love that He
Hmm.
has for you to, to be able to share it with another person truly,
Hmm.
'di ba? Like
Kasi
an
praying if you should
adoption.
adopt, it's like praying, Lord, should I obey you?
Yeah. True. Mm. Yeah. Thank you. I think we're good. That's a lot of good material na.
Thank you so much
All right.
um,
Yeah.
for sharing. And thank you so much for making the time. I know it took a while to set up, and we're also sorry about that. But
No,
we're
no
so
it's,
problem.
grateful that you gave a whole hour so that we could have this from you because we really
Mm.
wanted your story in the book. We were hoping that you'd be open, and you were. So thank you so much,
Yeah.
both of
welcome.
Thank
you, Sir
you.
Ardy, Miss
Welcome.
Welcome.
Miriam.
Yeah.
Sige. God bless. Thanks,
God
Yep.
Esther. Thanks,
bless.
Mitch.
God bless
Thank you.
you.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Esther.
Yo.
Sorry. Quick question. Because I was thinking, so for the